Hello everyone, this is Noah Villaverde, host of Blank Green Canvas, and today I'm going to be reviewing for you the new film Tenet from Warner Brothers Pictures. Tenet is the 11th film from writer-director Christopher Nolan and stars John David Washington as the unnamed protagonist, a secret agent that embarks on a dangerous mission to prevent the start of World War III. I gotta say, Christopher Nolan is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. You can actually check out my video essay exploring his filmography to hear my thoughts on all of his films leading up to Tenet. And because of my reverence for Nolan's work, this was my most anticipated film of 2020. Now, obviously, so much has happened due to the COVID-19 pandemic, so a lot of the films that we've been looking forward to have either been released on VOD or straight to streaming, or in some cases have been delayed months in advance, or at worst, honestly, indefinitely. And given that being the case, Tenet is the first major tentpole to be released on the big screen, as some theaters began to reopen worldwide at a reduced capacity. Because Nolan is adamant about the big screen experience, him and Warner Brothers made sure that this film would be ready for when theaters were given the approval to reopen at a reduced capacity. Now, I gotta say, I live in Fresno, California, where theaters are not open at the moment, but I did have the opportunity to go to El Dorado Hills, California, to see the film in the theater for the first time since March. In fact, the last film that I saw in a theater on the big screen was none other than Vin Diesel's Bloodshot in an IMAX theater in the Philippines. Yeah, that was my last film. Given the safe precautions necessary, it was nice to be in the theater again to see a new film, particularly a new blockbuster, on the big screen. I've certainly missed that experience. In regards to Tenet itself, after a week seeing it, I'm still admittedly processing it. I gotta admit that it is Nolan's most difficult film to follow, particularly on a first viewing. Now, given the palindromic nature of the title and the numerous sequences that go forwards and back, I had a feeling that Nolan was going to play with chronology in the film, and while I did find most of those sequences to be pretty remarkable, I still had a difficult time trying to follow the story for a good 65% of the runtime. Now, this is first and foremost a spy film. Particularly, this is Nolan's own take on the James Bond franchise. Except instead of Daniel Craig, we have John David Washington. I heard from another review site from Double Toasted that compared this film to riding a roller coaster with a physics major. And I don't think I've ever seen a blurb that is more accurately describing this film. This is also a film that is particularly more driven by plot than it is by character. And this is perfectly exemplified by the fact that John David Washington's character doesn't even have a name of his own, but rather is called the protagonist, which does play a part in the film itself story-wise. And in regards to characters to emotionally connect with, the only one we really truly have a connection with is Elizabeth Debicki's character. Now, I will say Tenet is certainly well performed. Although we don't know too much about John David Washington's protagonist, he is very compelling in the role and has a great presence on screen. He's charismatic, he has great chemistry with Robert Pattinson's character, and also he boasts some impressive athleticism in the fight sequences in particular. For one, John David Washington has a background of being a former football player, so that definitely played a role in his impressive performance here. Also, given that she's the emotional core, Elizabeth Debicki is really good, and Kenneth Branagh, who serves as the film's primary antagonist, is really great at playing Christopher Nolan's take on a James Bond villain, certainly chewing up the scenery, and he hams it up, and he does a really great job at doing it. Now, my issues with the script aside being hard to follow, on a technical standpoint, I couldn't help but be enthralled by Tenet. And in particular, the fight sequences and action sequences that use the concept of time inversion are immaculately shot. Hoyt van Hoytema returns for his third collaboration with Nolan, as his cinematographer, replacing Wally Pfister since Interstellar. And one thing that almost any person who watches this film can agree with is the fact that the cinematography is stunning. Also, for a film that clocks in at 2.5 hours or so, the pacing is certainly on point, with so many details hidden in plain sight that leave me eager to revisit this film in the future to catch up on all the parts I missed, which, I gotta admit, I missed out on quite a lot of details while watching this for the first time. Ludwig Göransson, famous for his Oscar-winning score for Black Panther, his Emmy-winning score for The Mandalorian, which I love, and his working relationship with Childish Gambino, which also garnered him a Grammy, takes the reins instead of Christopher Nolan's frequent collaborator Hans Zimmer. Now, I gotta say, in regards to Göransson's score, it fits so well with this film, and it is yet another example of why I consider him to be one of the most exciting composers that we have today. Now, I mentioned the awards that he won earlier, and he is so close to hitting that EGOT, which is an Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, that I think that he needs to work with Donald Glover on an original Broadway musical so he could complete that, because he is certainly on his way to getting there. Now, overall, when it comes to Tenet, I enjoyed it. It's definitely Nolan's most inaccessible film, plot-wise, given how particularly hard it is to follow on first viewing. So much so that I had to watch several Tenet explained videos to get a grasp on the film itself. But I'll admit, while looking back on it, I think I will wind up enjoying it more on subsequent viewings once it's finally available to own on Blu-ray. After all, I'm a Christopher Nolan fan, and I do want to collect all his films on Blu-ray, and I will definitely be picking this one up. And even with some of my issues aside, I found it to be incredibly enthralling on a technical level, and one that I believe will be rewarding on subsequent viewings. So overall, I gotta give Tenet a 7.5 out of 10. I am Noah Villaverde, host of Blank Green Canvas, and I will see you in my next video.